Hello everyone, and welcome to Senior Susie Stamps. I wanted to go back today and look at some more scraps. And I have a fun fold that I introduced a couple of years ago, I guess, and I called it the Hybrid Bookbind Easel Fun Fold. There's a video on that with some Christmas card examples, and I'll link that at the end of the video. But this is what it looks like when it comes out of the envelope. Of course, it comes out like this, which is a really pretty little card, but then when you put it up on your desk, you can put it like this, and you'll see you have a nice fun fold there that allows you to make some use of some smaller focal points. And in this case, this was a fussy cut out of some of this paper that I had, and then just some punched images. This bird is also a little punch, and it allows you to put just a small little space up in here to write a brief note. And so I thought today we would make another one of these cards. So I'm going to start with a top fold portrait card, and I'm going to get my scoreboard out, because you pretty much have to have it for this. And the first score that I'm going to put in is for the Bookbind. And so we already have a score at 5.5, and I want to put my Bookbind score in 1.25 inches down from that, so that would be 6 3/4 right here. And then on that same side, so you have your center line here, and on this same side, I want to score at 8 7/8. I hope that's right. Let's see, 1, 2, and 1/8. Yep, 8 7/8. And this is your easel score. So what we're going to do then is to fold this one back, and that makes the Bookbind, and then we're going to put a mountain fold on this one, and that makes your easel fold. So it looks right like this. Let me get my scoreboard out of the way. This particular fold works very nicely on this type of paper where it has a little single border on. So what we're going to do is cut this into 2 4-inch pieces, and I'm going to cut them at 4 by 5 1/4. So I'm going to cut the 5 1/4 first, and I'm just hoping that this piece is 8 inches. So we'll see. I may shoot myself in the foot right here, right now. And if I do, then we'll back up and regroup. So here's the first 4-inch cut. So far, so good. And what do you know, I got enough. Well, yippee skippy. And so this is the second 4-inch cut. And then this becomes yet another scrap. And this is the back side of that paper. Isn't it pretty? But I wanted to have this lighter colored paper to start this card with. Let me get some of these other scraps out of here, because I've already got a little focal cut. And what I did was some of these, here you can see on this card, I cut my little birdhouse out twice and then mounted it up with some foam and made that card front that way. I don't think we'll need birdhouses on this one, because I made a pretty little focal out of another piece of this paper, and it was this sheet. I had a smaller piece somewhere, but I believe I've used it up, and all I did was to cut a little circle out of that, and then cut a little bit larger circle out of a piece of this scrap you can see here. And then I happen to have just a small little piece of this pink left, and I thought it would go nicely with this. I also made the stopper out of that pink. So let's get this card put together now. Now, first thing I want to do is to burnish these fold lines in, because when you have a fancy fold card like this, or a fun fold card like this, you want to always be sure and burnish your fold lines in well, so that your card is working for you instead of working against you. So then I want to decide, and I think I'll use this one as my card topper. And so you can see this is just the first layer here. And I'm going to make 2 cuts. So this was 1 1/4. I'm going to cut the first cut at 1 1/8. And you will be able to see these cuts when we fold the card, but when it's open, you should be able to have them just kind of disappear on you. We're going to put them in pretty snug when we put them in. So now, I'm paying attention to how that cut line works. That's the way I want that one to go. And then on this one, I want to cut this piece at 2 inches. Because you remember that other fold line then was 2 1/8. So this is the way that we're going to glue that one up. And on this one, I'm going to put it on the inside. So let us start there. Let me move these off and put this one, just glue this piece in right here. And I'm not layering these because I really didn't have any paper in this paper pack left to layer with. And this is kind of an unusual color for me to have solid cardstock to match. So there we go, right like that. And then I'm going to glue the Bookbind portion of this down, and that's this layer right here. And what this ends up doing is making a lower profile easel card, which is a little different than what we normally see. I'm going to use my bone folder and burnish that Bookbind in nicely for us so it's good and tight, especially since I glued it down on top of this other paper here. So now we can flatten that back out and glue this piece in 3 parts. And I'm going to snuggle up right next to that score bump there so that my second piece of paper can be right up next to it and still allow it to function properly. On that first example I showed you, I didn't make this cut. I left this a solid piece of paper, and I really kind of felt like that made it just a little bit of a challenge to fold this page back the way it should. Now what you don't want to have is any overlap of this paper, because it will bind if you do. But see, there's no bind there at all. And as I say, you will see the tiniest little bit of crack there. Don't worry about that. People will really appreciate this card from you, and they won't be critical about a little tiny crack in the paper there. We're going to do the same thing here. We're going to snuggle that right up next to that original fold line there that's underneath. And then now, before you make your mechanics move too much, you want to burnish those down so they're nice and tight, and let your glue set well that way. And then you'll see you'll have a nice little card like this. And so on this one then, we're going to put this up on the, and I have backed this with some white cardstock. Okay, so now this one we want to have about here, I would say. And I think I'll try to find a little piece of something or another that will go up on that. But let's go ahead and glue this in. And I think I'll put a little, flip this over and put a little mark for my glue there and there. And that'll give me a place to put my glue down so that I don't have it coming out on this panel here. There we are. Right about like so. I think will be really pretty. There we go. I haven't decided on a sentiment for this card yet, but let's go ahead and put the stopper down. And I chose just kind of this plain little stopper for this one because there's a lot going on this card that's subtle, and I didn't want to introduce another pattern. The back of this paper was really pretty, but I thought it would be nicer to have it just this way. So I think I might cut just a little narrow strip of this and put it at the top here. That's really not quite wide enough. So let me see. That is a 1 1/8 strip, so I'm going to cut this at 7/8, I think. And then make it 3 7/8. And we'll see how that looks. There we go. I think that's going to be really pretty that way. And then I thought what we would do is punch a ribbon through that. When we get finished with this part of it. There we are. That's going to be nice. And I need a little sentiment for right here, and I was kind of hoping I had one over here, but obviously I do not, so that's not a good plan. Let me see what I've got in my magic drawer here of little small sentiments that would be nice to see on a card like this. I always like choose happiness. That's a good sentiment to put on a little card. And that way you can use your little card on your desk as a reminder when you're having a bad day that lots of times it's our choice to choose happiness. There we are. And then I need to put a little piece on the inside to write a little note, and I have some scrap paper up here. Let me see just how big of a piece we actually end up needing. I'm going to burnish this one open here. And so we'll cut this to 3 3/4 and then put it about like so. Let me cut that. That's a real precise measurement, isn't it? You know, sometimes you just gotta wing it a little bit. So there we are. And I do believe I'll round the corners on this white piece because I rounded the corners on this other one. And that will give it a little continuity on the inside then. There we go. Now all I'm going to do now is glue this down. That gives you a little place to write a personal little note that gets hidden on your desktop version of the card. And I think I will try to feed a little piece of ribbon through on this one. And I'm going to use my crocodile for that on the large hole. So now I want to mark it And I'm going to do that from the back. And I believe I will put those punches at 1 1¼ inches in. So that puts them right about there. And that'll give us a nice little area to tie off into a bow. So I'm going to set my guide to 5/8 of an inch. There's a little guide here, and you can just slip it right in there, and then it will, let me see how that looks. Ooh, that's just right on the money, honey. Money, honey. There we go. And that'll come right through there. And this one will come right through there. I can go back and use my white eraser and erase this little pencil mark, and you'll never know it was there, hopefully. And there we are. And then I'm going to get some pink ribbon out of my stash, and it's this crinkled twill, because I have a real pretty pink here that I think would go nicely with this card. And I'm going to go down through the hole with my tweezers to assist me. And then I'm going to come right back up through this other hole with my tweezers to assist me, because, you know, that wouldn't work doing it by hand. And then I'm just going to tie a very simple little bow knot, like you would tie for your shoes. I'm going to cut off my little excess, so I've got a little room to work here. And when I tie off like this, the one that goes up is the one that wraps around. So I want to make my loop like this first, and then wrap my other one around and push it through to make my little bow that way. And that squares your bow up that way. It doesn't go wonky on you. Now your tails, you may have to work a little bit, but your bow ears will be nice and square with your card that way. There we go. And then all we need to do is to go ahead and snip our little ends off however we want to. Not like that, I think. And if you wanted to pull this to one side or the other, you could do that now just by slipping it over that way a little bit. And so here's the card finished. You could put gems on this if you wanted to, but to me, this card has got a lot going on for it, just in the fold itself and in the paper. It's really pretty paper. So I hope you've enjoyed this card today, and that you'll think about making one of these, what did I call it? Hybrid Bookbind Easel fold, Easel fun fold. Say that 3 times. And I'll see you back here soon. Bye, everybody.